Hello everyone and welcome back to another instalment of the Warwick F1 Show. On this episode we are going to be previewing the Singapore Grand Prix, and I think the thing that we're all wanting at the moment is a bit of chaos, as I think we were talking about before the recording. We're expecting it in Azerbaijan. We got, I think, one VSC by the end and nothing else, and we haven't had a safety car since Canada. So we're hoping that Singapore can deliver on that front. And meanwhile, on the other case, it has, or in the constructor and drivers battles in Azerbaijan last weekend, it was McLaren who finally took first place in the constructors. And as we know, this is a poor circuit for Red Bull. Last season, it was the only race that they did not win. And so Red Bull are going to be hoping that they can limit the amount of damage that is most likely going to happen this weekend with the new pace of the Ferraris, of the McLarens, even closing down on Verstappen's Drivers' Championship lead, which is now only down to about 60 points, with Norris looking to close the gap even more. I'm your host, Callum, and I'm once again joined by Will Kingswood and Katch. And obviously, we all really like the Singapore Grand Prix. I think this is probably one of the best tracks that we go to. One of the first night races in a while, and I don't know. We'll go to you, Kingswood. To you, Will Kingswood first. What are you expecting from this race in terms of the teams that are going to benefit? We already mentioned that Red Bull were perhaps going to struggle here. Verstappen as well. You mentioned before the recording that this is not a track that he exactly likes that much.
I mean, yeah, the Red Bulls around this track, at least since we came back to it after COVID, have just not performed. Like, you look to 2022, it was a race kind of that can only be accurately described as pure carnage, with the rain and like a number of crashes up and down the grid. Verstappen only finished 7th. Perez did win that weekend, but obviously still competing kind of with the Ferraris there. And then in 2023, obviously, as you said, this race was the only one that Red Bull didn't win. And it's fair to say that they never really even looked like winning it throughout the weekend. And it's weird because Singapore's seemingly always been a race where if you're dominating in a season, you come to it and it doesn't go well. Even Mercedes back in when they were dominating in the kind of mid 2010s, 2014 to 2016, always kind of came to Singapore and had issues there. So maybe that doesn't bode well for McLaren, even that they're kind of doing better, but they come here a race that kind of throws a lot of spanners in the works, and it is a very unique race. Obviously, first night race back in 2008. It has been one where we've seen chaos for the last few years, and I'm just hoping that can continue. And I think we've had a safety car at every Singapore Grand Prix since 2008. So if the safety car doesn't come out here, then we may never see it again.
It will not.
We may not.
Now you said that. Now you said that, there will be no safety car. Come on. But I think this is just a track where drivers and teams have to be in the right place at the right time. Because, like you said, historically, it's known for a bit of drama, a bit of chaos. There have been lull points in all the races, but you have to be lucky and you have to be consistent and there and not make too many mistakes. So even for Red Bull, if they can get, with Max, a solid, like, 5th place, for example, because we don't expect them to do well and we expect the other teams to be better, that will be good because they've been consistent, they've obviously done something right to get to 5th. But if mistakes happen, for example in qualifying, then it can be kind of tricky. Unless luck's your way, you can't overtake as much.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned consistency. This is coming from a season which I think all teams have not really been anywhere near as consistent as they'd like. Obviously, Red Bull, as we mentioned, started off the season very well. We expected it to be a completely Red Bull dominated season, and then they have seriously dropped off in the last few races. We know that Lando Norris, with all of his skill and talent, has been a little bit too inconsistent this time. And obviously, Ferrari are only just coming into the picture as well. And I think Ferrari is a very big talking point for this weekend as well. We know that they were the only team last season to dismantle Red Bull at this circuit. And we also know that they have a very good upgrade package that worked extremely well in Monza. They didn't get the job done in Azerbaijan, but they are still, I think, breathing down McLaren's necks. And so I think I personally can see them doing very well. Do you guys think that, well, if we come to you, do you think that Ferrari will be able to best McLaren like they did in Monza? Or I know it's very much in McLaren's hands as to potentially winning now that they're in the front of the Constructors' Championship. What is your view on that?
Well, I think obviously you have seen for the last two races now, it's very much been a McLaren and Ferrari battle at the front. Although obviously both McLarens and Charles Leclerc, maybe a little less with Carlos Sainz, but you're coming into a race that he did obviously win last season. It is a different track to Baku and Monza, both of which were kind of characterized by a lot more straight lines. Singapore, it's tight, it's twisty, it's the longest race in terms of time on the calendar. We have seen races fairly routinely in the past hit that 2-hour time limit. Maybe it won't happen so much now with the changes to the track that we saw last year to make the track a bit shorter, a bit quicker. But this will be a long race. It will be a tough race. And there is nothing to suggest that the pecking order that McLaren and kind of Ferrari have established at the moment, that those two are the two top teams. There's nothing to suggest that will change. No one, I think, is really expecting Red Bull to be kind of competitive, although as we say this now, we'll come into it in a week and we'll be like, oh, why did we not expect that Red Bull 1-2 victory?
No way.
And Mercedes they're very race by race. They could come into it and be close. They could come into it and be nowhere. It's very difficult to kind of tell where that Mercedes and how that Mercedes will do. So yeah, I think if you were picking kind of from 4 drivers to kind of compete for that victory, I wouldn't look past Norris, Piastri, Leclerc, and Sainz. And I do think that if all going well for McLaren, it will be interesting to see their kind of new application of team orders. Will it be if Leclerc is winning and the McLarens are running P2 and P3, will Norris get that P2 at the end of the race? Will he be given that opportunity to catch Leclerc? And I think, I think like many of the races this season, it is going to be competitive. It's going to be close and it's going to be entertaining to watch. And then you add in kind of the kind of humidity, the drama, the intensity of Singapore, and I think you end up with a race that should be one that's very entertaining.
Exactly. I think especially with a race like this, it is so long, so a lot can happen. There is a lot of opportunities for incidents, for overtakes, sure, but for incidents to happen. And teams have really got to play their strategy right. And I think it will be, like you've said, very interesting for team orders and for especially getting towards the final part of the season. This is the final race before we get a bit of a break. We have a 3-4 week break. So it is very important for teams to make statements. For teams like McLaren, who there's been a lot of talk. There was a lot of talk going in to Azerbaijan about team orders. Now are they going to play these team orders like you said? Or now Piastri's got this win, are they going to let it be? We don't know it. I think a lot of it depends for them on Red Bull's qualifying. If Red Bull qualify really far down in the top 10, then of course they've got to prioritise Lando. But if not, then maybe, I don't know, I could see them playing around a little bit. But this is also, you can't rule out Mercedes with a random track like this where there could be incidents. They've always been, in the past few races, the right place, the right time to get these random points and podiums. So
Russell just loves that he's been handed stuff this season. And to be fair, he was disqualified from a win in Belgium, as we know, which I think is quite unfair. But he's definitely had a lot of lucky moments as well. Obviously, being handed a podium in Austria. Handed the win in Austria, and then handed the podium last race. Sorry, what I meant to say. But certainly, as we mentioned, in a track that is as chaotic as this, and really, I think McLaren and Ferrari, as we mentioned, they're they're so close now with the upgrades that they've made, and it wouldn't take me by surprise if either of those teams came out on top, or as we mentioned, if they were close. And talking of chaos, just one thing to add into the mix of another safety car, we do have Kevin Magnussen returning for this race after his ban in Baku for gaining too many points on his license, and that's obviously why Oliver Behrman came in to replace him last week. He is back, so we'll be able to see what he can do with the limited amount of time he has remaining in that Haas seat, especially now that Williams are looking very strong, and Williams are certainly looking to challenge Haas for their kind of 7th place battle, if you will, in the constructors.
Kevin Magnussen is back, and with a clean license as well.
That is a recipe for danger. He's got a clean license. 12 points. That 12 point. It's not a 12-point limit. It's a 12-point target in Magnussen's eyes. And I think
first time to get disqualified for race bans twice in the season.
Right, it is important to note that he isn't aiming for penalty points.
We can't verbal evidence from him.
Oh, but we can't just say that he's going to be targeting these things. But I do
We can. It's fun. He's not going to listen to this. Come on.
Maybe
he might be. Magnussen, Kevin, if you're listening to this episode, we do apologise. We're only joking. We don't think you're going to be targeting that, but he doesn't help himself. He has been banned, as we know, and
all I'm saying is it's been effective. They have got points as a result of Magnussen in Saudi Arabia, in Miami, as a result of Magnussen kind of holding up the rest of the field. And
True.
I think they're a few points ahead of Williams at the moment, as far as I'm aware. So I wouldn't say that they're too under threat from the Williams. Obviously, I think the last race in Baku really has kind of boosted the Williams points total. So it remains to be seen whether that was kind of an outlier or not. They're still Haas are still 13 points ahead. If anything, they're going to try and challenge RB, who are only 5 points ahead of them. And I think, obviously, while we may not say that Kevin Magnussen is aiming for points in his license, if he does things that win them points while potentially also causing him to earn a few of those points, then you could almost say that would be a trade-off. And as we say, yes, he does now have a clean slate. So there are a few more opportunities for a bit of leeway before he ends up risking another race ban.
Yeah, but I think it's also he naturally, and the position that Haas are in, there's such a tight battle towards the rear of the constructors that you have to go for gaps, you have to make bold moves if you want to get those points, because it's so hard to get them now. And it's so important, especially because Williams are closing and they are pretty strong at the moment with this lineup. So I think when we're saying Kevin Magnussen may have incidents or he may be involved in them, even if they're not caused by him, it's just the position that he's in and the position that you're trying to go for. So I love him, but it is when you're taking those risks, he's one of the more riskier risk takers.
Or was it the Senna quote? It was like, if you don't go for a gap, you're no longer.
Is he allowed to use that quote? I don't think that's. Or is that the quote that he used when he was being investigated by the stewards and called into the stewards' room for the many penalties that he's accumulated over the course of this season?
I think it was the Senna one, and then people added to that back in the day with, if you go for a gap that no longer exists, you're Pastor Maldonado. So maybe we'll add Kevin Magnussen to that esteemed list of drivers.
He's in a very exclusive group at the moment of absolute chaos makers. But no, you guys are right with it. It's going to be a very interesting battle to look at between RB, Haas and Williams, especially now Colapinto's there and we know how good he is and how well he can perform in that seat. But just the last thing that I wanted to touch on before we move on to our predictions, just very quickly, is I think this is going to be a very important race for Lando Norris, because the conversation recently has shifted less away from the constructors' battle, I think, because we know that McLaren are in front now and that Red Bull are most likely going to lose that. And the conversation has shifted more, I think, onto the Drivers' Championship now that Norris and Leclerc are seeming to reduce that gap to Verstappen. But I think Norris, if he is going to want a chance at the Drivers' Championship, he's going to need to have some of those races where he is first or second and Verstappen is down in 6th or 7th to get a massive points haul, as we mentioned in the last episode for our Baku review, which you should obviously go and check out after this episode. But I think this is a real good chance for Norris to do that, is what I'm trying to get onto, because we expect Red Bull not to be very good this weekend, and it's obviously coming from a very strong weekend in Baku last weekend for the McLaren drivers, bar obviously Norris's qualifying. And I don't know, I think you could really see a big switch up in the Drivers' Championship potentially from this Singapore Grand Prix.
Yeah, I mean...
You go ahead, Will.
No, I think...
I want the unbiased opinion.
If you asked me, well, I guess yeah, but if you asked me which race for the rest of the season is Norris's best opportunity to gain big points over Verstappen, I would pick this one. There is nothing to indicate that the Red Bull is going to do well here, and I'm fully aware that I'm setting myself up for a big fall if they somehow win. But currently, there is nothing to indicate the Red Bull will win or even get a podium at the Singapore Grand Prix. There is everything to indicate that the McLaren of Lando Norris can win this race. If he wins, Verstappen's best result, I would say, is 6th, potentially maybe only 7th if both of the Mercedes perform. Because I think even if they were 7th and 8th, Verstappen and Perez, that would get switched round about instantly. So 7th is 6 points. First is 25, potentially 26. There is an opportunity here for Lando Norris to make up at minimum 15, and even up to, I'd say, 20 points on Max Verstappen. That would take the gap down to 39, and you'd be looking at 6.5 points per race, plus the sprints as per race weekend, and obviously the 3 sprints are to come. That would take it from 8.5 points per race that we've got currently. This is Lando Norris's best opportunity. If he doesn't get a significant number of points, I think if he gets less than 10, I would say that would be a big disappointment for Norris. I wouldn't say it would put him out of the drivers' battle, but I think it would be a big opportunity missed in terms of what the McLaren could gain over the Red Bull this weekend.
I do agree. I think for Lando, it is just a big... He has to make the most of it because he had that issue in qualifying in Azerbaijan. Singapore is one he's done fairly well at. He obviously, as we know, finished second last year in Singapore, and he qualified, I believe it was 4th there and 6th the year before. So he's got decent qualifying, and those are both in non-very great cars that are not that dominant, that aren't meant to win races. So he's been up there, and he will feel that frustration from Azerbaijan. He'll feel the frustration from Baku, and he will have seen what he's done and what the team can do. And I think Singapore is the chance for him to fight back at everyone and be like, right, I am stamping my foot down. I am doing this. I will qualify well. I've got the support of the team. I've got the support of Piastri. Everything should come together because it's an unpredictable race. He just needs to put himself in that position. And like you said, Will, I can see him making up a bunch of points. I can see this being a real landmark. If there is to be a landmark in this championship, which I still don't think it is a championship battle yet, but if it is to become one, this is when it happens. This is when I'll believe. Maybe. But yeah.
Yeah, certainly, and I think Norris will be very aware of how important the situation he is now at the moment, and what kind of points that he is going to be capable of hopefully making up for the Singapore Grand Prix. But I think we'll move it on to our predictions, and essentially, if you haven't joined us before, we predict our top 5, and we do a 1, 2 and 3 point prediction, where the more points it's worth, the more unlikely it is. And Katch, I'll pass it on to you first, because you have first pick of our winner. We take it in turns essentially to pick who is going to win the race. And Katch, you have the priority in deciding. So who have you gone for?
So, piggybacking off of our conversation just then, I have had faith in my man, and I've gone for Lando Norris to win the race.
No heart in that decision at all. All head, isn't
No,
it?
I'm biased. No, so every time I've predicted Lando to not do as great, he's done really well. So I'm deciding, right, positive mindset. This is the first race that I will be back up at Warwick to watch, because I've spent the year away. So I'm really looking forward to it, and he's going to go on and he's going to win the race and prove everyone wrong. That's the dreamland. So, hey, whatever happens, my prediction means nothing. So if he suddenly does bad, it's not on me, because there's hundreds of people who've gone to work making predictions.
But if he does well, it was all you.
It's all me. My fate.
That's exactly how it's going to work. I know.
Yes.
And the rest of your top 5, Katch, what have you gone for?
Yes, I've got Lando for first. I've got Carlos Sainz for second, so a flip on last year's 1-2. Then I've got Oscar Piastri in third, holding up Leclerc in fourth, and Lewis Hamilton in fifth. I think Mercedes will do well, but not as well as the top 2 constructors here.
Very, very interesting. I see a Mercedes up there as well, which, I suppose for the kind of the 5th place at the moment, it's going to be a choice between. We know that all of us are agreeing that it's going to the two Ferraris and the 2 McLarens are going to be in the top 5. So it's just a case of choosing a Red Bull or a Mercedes, really. Katch, did you want to go through your 1, 2, and 3 point predictions as well?
Yes, so my 1 point prediction is 4+ DNFs in the race. We had that in Baku, and Singapore is usually more chaotic, so should happen, hopefully. My 2 point prediction is Kevin Magnussen, specifically Kevin Magnussen, causes an incident. He can have an incident with someone else, that's fine, but as long as he's one of the main people causing the incident, that it's caused by him, perfect.
So if he's crashed into, that doesn't count.
No, because he hasn't caused it.
Yeah, okay. So he has to be the instigator. What makes it the
2 point. He crashes into the person. That's fine.
Does he have to earn penalty points? No,
I don't want the penalty points.
We should specify on this podcast we're not wanting Magnussen to get penalty points. We just think it's quite funny, but
yep, we don't. He's one of the memeable people right now. It's fine. He's got his own family. He's got his own life. He's fine.
He seems to embrace it as well. He seems to have embraced the chaos.
Yeah, which is that's the one option. Otherwise, you just turn a bit upset and depressed that everyone's memeing you. So I'm glad you embraced it.
And the 3 point prediction?
My 3 point prediction's a bit random, but there is a car fire at some point in the weekend. So in one of the sessions, an F1 car, whether that be in the garage or on the track, there has to be some flames.
Or the sea flames.
I don't know why, but a car fire.
Well, if you're going to pick a race, it's hot, it's humid.
Exactly.
Stuff goes wrong in hot and humid.
It's a good prediction to make for Singapore, indeed.
Yeah, that's my vibe.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll go through mine next because I was second pick. It just as it happened to fall on this weekend. So I've gone with Leclerc first. I do think that even though I would really like McLaren to do well because I am a McLaren fan as well, I do think Ferrari might get the better of them this weekend just because we knew how strong they were around Singapore last weekend, and I'm not sure. I just have a feeling that it's going to go Ferrari's way, and so I've picked Leclerc to go P1. I think McLaren will be up there, so I've picked Norris P2 and Piastri P3. Then Sainz P4, obviously, as we mentioned, 2 Ferraris, 2 McLarens being in the top 4. That's kind of what we can expect now going to this race. And then I've gone with the other Mercedes that Katch picked. So I'm going to go with Russell P5. And then for my 1, 2, and 3 point prediction, I've actually also picked to focus on Magnussen for my 1 pointer, but it's not to do with his chaos. I've just said that he'll finish outside the points for my 1 point prediction.
Okay, so can you clarify? If he doesn't finish, he's technically finished outside the points, but he hasn't finished.
Yes. He finishes. He does not finish in the top 10. That's a better way to word it.
Yeah.
He does not finish in the top 10. 2 point prediction. I'm going to say that the driver who gets pole position gets all 3 purple sectors. So they are fastest out of everyone in every single sector, not just over the entire course of the lap, obviously. And then my 3 point prediction is going to be that someone crashes on the bridge and this causes a red flag. That's my hope. Not my hope. I don't want someone to crash, but if they do, that would be nice because I get 3 points. But yes.
Oh yeah.
And finally, yes, exactly. And finally, Will. So you're going to cover for Chinmay, who unfortunately couldn't be with us today. You've got the 3rd pick, so you can't pick Norris or Leclerc. Who have you gone for?
I'm going to be honest. I did just change all of my top 5.
Amazing!
During the announcement of these predictions, so I've actually gone for. I think there could be a back-to-back winner in Carlos Sainz.
Okay.
I've changed it based on the fact that I actually do, thinking about it, think Ferrari might be a little bit stronger here, just because they tend to do well around street circuits, and they've obviously won last year. So yeah, I've gone for Sainz P1, and then I have said it will be a Ferrari 1-2 with Charles Leclerc in P2. Then I've gone for the 2 McLarens in Norris in P3 and Piastri in P4. And I have said Verstappen P5. I think I don't know why, but Verstappen always feels like one of those drivers, and I think there's a select category of them. I think Lewis Hamilton tended to be one as well, of drivers who just seem to always be up there. Like they don't get unlucky often, but they're just always kind of more in the right place at the right time. And I think Verstappen may have that this weekend. So I have said P5 for Verstappen. My 1 point, going off the fact that Singapore is normally a very, very long race, I have gone for the race time will be 1 hour, 45 minutes or longer. My 2 pointer.
1 hour 44.59 minute race.
I'm going off the official race time classification of F1. My 2 pointer, I have said, and this completely contradicts my top 5, but you got to hedge your bets. I've said Norris gains 12 or more points over Verstappen in the title battle. So he outscores him by 12 or more points this weekend. And then my 3 pointer, in keeping with the hope for chaos, I've said there is a collision between 2 drivers running in the top 5. And I think collision, there's got to be significant kind of.
Yes.
They can't
not just tapping wheels. It's got to be a lot like, obviously, what you're thinking is like last time in Baku between Perez and Sainz, like a significant damage.
Yeah, or even like a puncture, loss of a front. I think a loss of front wing. Yeah. You can judge it however you want. When or if it happens, but yeah, those are my predictions.
Very nice. Yes, yeah. So we'll see how all of those get on next weekend when we do our Singapore review back in Studio 2, where we belong, as Will said, with no microphone issues, no internet connection issues. We shall be looking out to see how all of the drivers do, including hopefully Bert Mylander if we get some chaos, because he's been not even part-time. He's been on holiday for the past since Canada, I think, was the last time we had a safety car. So if there is one race that we are going to have the reintroduction of the safety car, it's certainly going to be Singapore. We also have, before this episode uploaded, our Baku review. We've had plenty to talk about from last weekend with how good that race was and the amount of talking points from that. But until then, thank you very much for Will and Katch for joining me. I've been your host, Callum, and until next time, goodbye.